Hi, everybody. Well, I hope that everybody's having a good 1st of August. It is hotter than hell here where I am. Oh my gosh. But I wanted to talk about these messages that have come out in the unsealing of these documents from the Depp Heard trial. So a number of you may know that there were 6,000 pages of documents recently unsealed. We'd never before seen a lot of it, stuff that wasn't entered into evidence from the Depp Heard trial. And so tucked away in this and all of this, there was a motion by Amber Heard to have certain messages, certain email messages and text from Marilyn Manson, between Marilyn Manson and Johnny Depp, entered into evidence. Some of which, and they're talking about, Amber Heard, and I'm sure what she thought was a derogatory way, although I would just say it was accurate. But within these messages, there were several that got a lot of negative attention, and I've seen coverage today in the Daily Mail and Newsweek and different outlets, and so I wanted to address this. I got word a couple of days ago, whenever the unsealed documents in the Depp versus Heard trial were posted, so I guess it was a couple of days ago. Someone who was pretty deep into the reading contacted me after they'd been posted and this person had gotten a chance to read. Contacted me and said, "Oh, I think that there's some text in here between Manson and Depp that might cause a bit of a stir." And they sent me some screenshots of the messages between Manson and Depp that Amber Heard had tried to enter into evidence. So these messages, a number of them are not particularly flattering toward Marilyn Manson or in some ways to Depp, particularly if taken out of context, which they very much have been. Now, there's not that many messages, but basically it's like 5 messages that people online are freaking out about. And so we're going to talk about those, and I'm going to give you my perspective on it. I can tell you that my initial reaction when I saw some of these messages, particularly, when I was first looking at these messages, I was skimming them like really fast. When somebody gives you something and you're just trying to get a sense of it. And so what I saw in just these couple of messages that the person had sent me, I guess they thought they sent me the messages that they thought would be the most salacious or that people would get the most whipped up about, right, online between Depp and Manson. And so I'm skimming through really fast, and I see a couple of references to Lindsay, Marilyn Manson's now wife, but a woman that he's dated on and off for a decade, for a long time. And so I'm seeing references to her name, and then I see restraining order, I see police report, I see she said I beat her up. And so, of course, the response, my immediate feeling was like, wow, it's not good for Manson, right? It's not good for Manson. And that was just my immediate thing. And so then I was like, okay, all right, I'm gonna actually slow down. I'm gonna actually read through these messages now. Then I see actually that it was not what at first it appeared to be. I have, for over a year, been promoting the idea that Marilyn Manson is a victim of a Me Too hoax, and that a coordinated hoax headed up by Evan Rachel Wood and her co-conspirator Ilma Gore, and that the accusations against him are false, and I've been trying to get what I believe is the truth out on that for over a year. Now, a number of you know I am not a Marilyn Manson fan, and when I started doing this research and started paying attention to this case, I only knew like 6 songs. Still don't know many more than that. And despite what my critics may think, I am not wedded to any particular outcome in this case. I, as Johnny Depp would say, never fear truth, and I'm going to go where the truth is. But I think that these few messages that have been getting a lot of negative attention, I think that they are being misunderstood, and I think that viewed within proper context, they're not alarming as a lot of people think they are. And there's just been so much misinformation and so much misunderstanding. I mean, just imagine, I just want to say, to you all in the audience, just imagine that somebody reached into, the metaphorical grab bag of emails that you have sent, let's say to your best friend, right? Because those tend to have, at times, a more sort of joking quality, or there's more insider information, or there's more surrounding context, right? So let's say that, somebody reached in and pulled out, like 10 emails or 10 texts or whatever from you and your best friend without any kind of context. I'm sure that a number of you would say that it is not unlikely that they would find things that, viewed without context and understanding, they would say, oh my God, what is this? So I want to look now. So we're going to look at actually the Marilyn Manson Uncanceled website, because they have taken these messages, they posted them here, and they provide some annotations. So right off the bat, I want to say, and it's so obvious, and it's one of the things that Andrea Burkhart, I think, is going to get into in a video this week, but the kind of brotherly love between these two men, like they really, really are great friends and clearly love each other and are there for each other. And so to see people making fun of that, I think is kind of silly. And I think that those who support Johnny Depp and have supported Johnny Depp through all that he's been through, I think that they owe some kind of gratitude, or should owe some gratitude, to Marilyn Manson for evidently being such a close friend to Depp. And so anyway, there were these emails that were sent by Marilyn Manson at one point, and he seems to be referring to a problem that he's having in his romantic relationship. Okay, so what we have a series of messages where over several days, Marilyn Manson is trying to get in touch with Depp, and Depp is hard to reach. I don't know, he's traveling or whatever, right? But finally, he gets back to him, and Marilyn Manson is in some kind of agitation. He says, Manson says, "Are you back? I'm at Bates." Bates is a friend and collaborator, musical collaborator. But Lindsay pulled an Amber, and she filed a police report because that zipperhead, James Iha, that's his brother-in-law now, and her poor bat mom want to steal my money. Fuck 'em. I'm safe right now, but I may need to hide out if you got a spare room. To this, Johnny Depp replies, "Let me know, brother." And then Manson says, "I will." All right. Now, Lindsay, this is his current wife, his now wife, at the time his girlfriend, and she has put out a couple of statements firmly supporting him. And when he says pulled an Amber and filed a police report, so what he seems to be saying is that they had some kind of a blow up, and then she filed a police report, right? And by comparing her to Amber, the implication is that it was a false police report, that Manson actually did not do anything to her, right? Okay, and then later on, not too long after that, Depp says, where it makes reference to where he's at, and then this is the one that's really setting people off. Manson replies, "I talked to Tony," and Tony is his manager, "but this is fucked. She filed a restraining order, said I beat her up, and gave the cops my address, and said that I have drugs here, so I'm ready to book out of here." Now, what's really created a stir online is the fact that we have these texts here, these two emails in particular, where Manson asserts that his girlfriend at the time is pulling an Amber Heard, meaning that she is going to try to frame him for hurting her when he really didn't do it, right? And so he claims that two things. He says he claims that he's heard, presumably from her, that she filed a police report and that she filed a restraining order. Now, the idea of the restraining order, that comes from Tony, his manager, right? So we're not getting that secondhand, but thirdhand. Manson is saying that Tony said, that Lindsay said that she filed a TRO. You know, one of the things that some people online, particularly people who are more inclined to defend Amber Heard or Evan Rachel Wood, one of the things that they're saying is that this shows that Manson was abusive, because look, what he's saying is that he was so abusive that Lindsay had to file a police report and a TRO. Well, you have to understand, there's nothing in the communications between Depp and Manson to indicate at any time that Manson is abusive or that he is admitting in any way to abuse. The fact that he calls her an Amber indicates, if anything, that he believes that he's not done anything and that he's being framed or is going to be framed. Now, I am not suggesting that this attitude toward Lindsay that Manson showed in these emails, I'm not I am not suggesting that we take it at face value. In other words, I'm not suggesting that we take these messages as indicative of the fact that Lindsay really was crazy or trying to hurt him or whatever, right? I think it is just as likely that Marilyn Manson, perhaps in his attempt to sort of play up to Depp, because Depp had just gone through the stuff with Amber Heard, and to kind of bond over that, maybe he said something, right? He made up something. The fact of the matter is there was no TRO that was filed. There was no restraining order. Lindsay did not file a restraining order, and so we know that that's not true. Andrea Burkhart, my lawyer friend, she investigated it. It's absolutely sure there was no TRO. And so what we're left with here then is an inaccurate representation by Marilyn Manson. He's saying to Johnny Depp in his message that Lindsay, filed a TRO and filed a police report and accused him of beating her up. But the main assertion that he makes about the TRO we know is not true. And I have interviewed, one of the things that I've done on my channel, as a number of you know, is I have interviewed multiple people, both on and off record, who have known Marilyn Manson intimately. I've interviewed ex-girlfriends, ex-lovers, personal assistants, people who lived with him. And I have interviewed and talked with several people who were very close with Manson and Lindsay or even lived with them. What they said is that they went through some volatile times back when they were both using drugs, when they weren't sober, when they were deeply into drugs and alcohol in particular, and they went through a period where they had these drunken fights. And so this likely in particular, I'm told, it's a big, drunken blowout that they had, but it was not one that included physical violence. I've talked to too many people on and off record, behind the scenes, and all of them have said that Marilyn Manson is not violent toward women. Now, what I have heard is that when he's really stressed out, or when he's on a binge, or he's on a chemical down, that he can get stressed out, that he can get angry, that he can even occasionally throw things, but not throw things at people, right? Sort of like Esme Bianco talks about in one of her interviews, that he threw a flip phone at a light, right? That sort of thing. And so based on the interviews that I've done with people who should know, and based on my reading of these limited messages that we have here, and the fact that we know that the TRO was a lie, I think what we've got here, and I think it's pretty easy to see it, is that we've got a very dramatic couple. We've got a couple of drama queens in this situation who were going through a volatile period in their relationship. And we all know how it is when you're on the phone with a friend. Sometimes things slip out of your mouth. You say things that are not true. And I'm just imagining, we know that Marilyn Manson was drunk a lot during this period, was deep in substance abuse, and Lindsay. And so the kind of sloppiness that engenders. People say things, they make drunken threats, or somebody, or Manson's on the phone with Depp and he says something sort of flippantly, even though it's not true. That's what I think we've got here. I think we've got some people going through a tumultuous time in their relationship who are drunk and sounding off about it and being drama queens. And that's what I see. And there's not been any evidence to the contrary. He was going through a really messy period in his life. I think they were both going through a really messy period. And we have to be honest about the fact that we've got a rock star whose lifestyle, for decades has centered around this idea of being edgy and not only being edgy, but of attracting edgy people. He made a comment one time about being flypaper for damaged women. Well, I don't think, that's not how I think about Manson's wife now, but I know that she and he both went through a rough period together. And I think that a number of the other women that he has attracted in his life, they've been damaged. And that's why you have, I think, several women accusing him, whereas in a normal case, you'd only have one Amber Heard. What I've been trying to say is, this is not a Johnny Depp. This is someone who was living a much more extreme life, not extreme in a sense of violence, extreme in a sense of being very, very sloppy, and of inviting into his orbit a lot of, at times, I think, equally sloppy people, or people who were also having some issues. And it could get volatile. And so what I read with this conversation, is that it doesn't actually bear much, it doesn't actually tell us much of anything about who Manson really is, or who Lindsay really is for that matter. What it tells us is that they were going through a sloppy period where they got wasted and they had this, big fight, and Lindsay, screamed a bunch of things, said she was going to do a bunch of things, and Manson heard about it, or he decided that he was going to, kind of play up to Depp and exaggerate or lie. But what we do know is that there was no restraining order. There was no TRO. So that was a lie. And so that means it can't be the truth. And I just do not think from the research that I've done that the truth is that Manson is abusive. And like I said, even someone like Dan Cleary, who is the only person who has claimed to see Manson abusing Lindsay, Dan Cleary doesn't claim that he saw Manson, that he ever saw Manson beat her up, or that she was ever injured or anything like that. He claims that it was a psychologically, at times, abusive relationship, and I take issue with how he characterizes some things that he describes. But that is not what my research has shown either, and is that it was an abusive relationship. It went through a volatile time or two, and a sloppy time or two, right, or more. So that's my thought. I know that a number of people online, my critics, will say, "Oh, she's just defending Manson," but I mean, I've given it a lot of thought, and I've weighed the significance of things like the fact that the tiara was a lie. And by the way, there's no evidence that Manson was ever abusive to anyone, to any of the women that he dated. Now, I also want to talk about a few very blatant misunderstandings that people are freaking out about online in regard to these emails. There's a reference made in one of the emails to the fact that Depp is feeling, Manson says, "Oh, if you're feeling kind of low, let me hook you up with this woman," right? And then there's a break, right? There's a space, and then there's a reference by Manson to 18, and then also to the Depp show. Now, people are freaking out because they think that the 18 is a reference to this woman that Manson is trying to hook Depp up with. Like, oh my God, he's grooming 18-year-olds and stuff. Well, first of all, 18 is entirely legal, all right? I don't know who decided that 18 is now off limits. I wasn't there for that vote, but that's silly. But that's not even what they're talking about. If you read one of the messages right before this message, what you see is that Depp and Manson, they were planning that that they would perform together at a Hollywood Vampires show. The Hollywood Vampires are Johnny Depp's band. And so Johnny Depp was asking him, which 2 songs do you want to perform with me? And Manson replies then, in the controversial text that I mentioned, he replies 18, which is an Alice Cooper song, and The Depp Show, which is an intentional misspelling of the Dope Show, Marilyn Manson song. So those are 2 songs that the Hollywood Vampires performed. And so that's what was going on. They were planning an upcoming show that was going to be coming up very soon. They talk in these messages about their working on the album, the shows, and all of that. And just because they're very brief emails, people put together the part about I'll hook you up with this woman you might like, with the 18. And they're not related. And it's very clear once you know the context, and once you look at the context of the conversation. There's also a reference to Sallow, which is, I hope I'm saying it right, Sallow or Sallow, 120 Days of Sodom. It is a film that was based on a notorious work of literature by the Marquis de Sade. And yes, of course, the film, it includes all kinds of disturbing things, right? But we know that Manson and Depp, yes, they're into darker aesthetics and dark art and all that, and there's nothing wrong with that, okay? I like horror films too. So one of the things that's said in this email is, oh, we'll have our own Sallow. We'll have our own Marquis de Sade thing. And people are freaking out. They think that they're talking about an actual orgy or an actual S&M sex party or something. That is not what it is about, okay? It's not about any of that. They're talking about a video they were planning to shoot very soon, a video for Kill For Me, a song by Marilyn Manson that Johnny Depp was going to star in, and he did star in. And so, of course, since Marilyn Manson's videos are very dark thematically, and this video that Johnny Depp was in, it was very dark thematically, they were making this joking reference to the fact that it was their own version of a kind of a Sallow, right? Just like that was a disturbing, really out there, edgy film. they were going to do their own version of that in this edgy music video that they were gonna shoot in what, a couple of days or something. So my point is, I'm not going to go through all of these messages. I might do that maybe a little later in the week, but I wanted to get this out really fast, and I just wanted to explain to people that, look, I would have thought that we would have learned this lesson by now, but you cannot take these media narratives always just at face value. And you sure can't take the ramblings of the crazed ramblings of people on Twitter as gospel truth either. You see all these people on Twitter, or you see some of these more outlandish news articles saying, oh, you know, messages between Johnny Depp and Marilyn Manson, where they talk about orgies, or they talk about having sex with 18-year-olds, right? Or look, there's Marilyn Manson talking about how he beat up his girlfriend. No, that's none of that. None of that. All right. And so I would just say, you know, like Johnny Depp said, don't fear truth, never fear truth, right? Look at the messages yourself, but look at them within the proper context. And there's actually a whole lot of context that's helpful that I haven't had time to get to. And so I invite you to look at the website Marilyn Manson Uncanceled. I'm going to put a link below to that as well. You look at this page and it provides these great annotations to the conversation, to the full conversation between Johnny Depp and Marilyn Manson. I think you're going to see that there's nothing nefarious or terrible or harmful or malicious or perverse about this conversation. It's two guys who are good friends, maybe a little juvenile in their sense of humor, and with a kind of a strange way of expressing themselves, for sure, but nothing wrong with that. All right? Now, this week, as I said, I am going to be putting out a range of videos on different topics, but one of the things that I do want to start doing is looking at some of the more prickly parts of the Marilyn Manson case, right? Some of the things that are, I think, the weaker aspects of his case. Because, like I said, I'm not afraid of the truth on this. I believe that Manson is innocent, and I don't believe that looking at some of these questions that have been raised about that, or some of the weaker points of his case, are going to harm that truth, if indeed it is the truth, as I believe. All right. So as always, support my work, like and subscribe. I have my PayPal and Patreon links below. You don't need to be a PayPal member to donate, and I always appreciate, you know, tips and comments and all of that. All right. I hope to have a lot more out in the upcoming days and weeks. Thanks. Bye-bye.